Hey guys, it's Omer from MMOs.com. Another quick week news recap of all major MMO news and announcements of the week ending July 29th, 2019. This is episode number 210 of the recap, and the first of news this week comes from BioWare regarding Star Wars The Old Republic. Earlier this week, the game's public test servers began testing the game's upcoming expansion titled Onslaught, which itself is set to launch sometime in September. This first round of testing includes changes to Sorcerer, Assassin, Marauder, and Juggernaut advanced classes, while other advanced classes set to be available in later rounds of testing. While Star Wars The Old Republic is the player base is certainly down from its peak, it's good to see BioWare churning out updates for the game. They've also made the game more playable for free-to-play users more recently, so now's a good time to check it out if you never actually played this one and you're looking for a story-driven MMORPG. Next up, a bit of a blast from the past. Fiesta Online is celebrating its 11th birthday and hosting some in-game events to celebrate the occasion. Usually these anniversary events and announcements aren't really a big deal or worth covering even on these news recaps, but Fiesta Online is one of the OG free-to-play MMORPGs in the West. It helped get the business model going in the West back when Fiesta was available through Outspark. Remember those days? Well, the game's been running pretty much continuously since then for 11 years now, but of course Outspark is long gone and Fiesta is now published by GameAgo. This one is definitely an oldie, but it's still around and does still get updated. Up next, speaking of oldies, Dungeon Fighter Online from Neopal got a big update this last week titled the 5th Destiny Update, which introduced new jobs for the male Slayers, which can now become Ghost Blades, but more importantly, the female Mages, which is the game's basically their Lolly-esque class, can now become Enchantresses. While Dungeon Fighter Online isn't particularly big here in the West, it's actually the most successful MMORPG in the world thanks to its huge popularity in China, out-earning juggernauts like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, and whatnot. DFO is also one of the first instance dungeon persistent hub-style MMOs, and since its success, that type of genre has gotten a lot bigger and a lot more copycats. It's still pretty remarkable, but DFO is basically, I think, the second highest grossing PC game in the world after League of Legends. So this game is huge, but mostly in China. Next up, a small update for Tera. The game's Skywatch Antiquities update is now live, which introduces new solo dungeons, as well as a revamped new player experience. The new player experience is essentially sped up with story quests, taking players right to level 65, a bit quicker. Tera, along with Blade and Soul and Black Desert Online, remain the only persistent world action MMORPGs out there, so if you haven't played this one, it's still worth checking out despite its age. After all, Tera launched back in 2012, making it about 7 years old now, but still one of the few action MMORPGs out there, and the combat is still fun. Up next, we finally have a release date for Pagan Online. The ARPG has been in early access / beta for about 10 months now. The game is launching onto Steam fully on August 27th, a whole host of new updates, and will be launched with 8 full acts of story campaigns at launch. 2 new bosses and 2 new playable classes, the Eldon and the Hector. To be honest, the biggest hurdle I think for Pagan Online to do well will be its price tag. It's not free to play, and you have an absolute beast of a game like Path of Exile available for free, which dominates the ARPG genre. This one is published by Wargaming, the guys behind World of Tanks, and they have a lot of money, so they could perhaps push this game quite a bit. But the game's player base in early access is not that high, averaging about 150 or so players in the last 30 days, but we'll see how it does at launch. And speaking of games launching, the sandbox MMORPG Legends of Aria is launching on the Steam Early Access on August 6th, which is a bit weird because this game was supposed to launch on Steam back in December, but it looks like they suffered several delays and now it's set to come out on August 6th. What's weird though is that the game's been in open beta for some time already off Steam, and it's just launching to Early Access on Steam on August 6th. I always thought Early Access was before open beta, but I guess not. Anyway, this one's been available for a long time already, but it should see a big bump in player base once it launches on Steam on August 6th. It's an MMORPG inspired by oldies like Ultima Online and RuneScape. Definitely an indie game, but if you like those oldies, it might be worth checking out. Up next, Twin Saga launched patch 17 this last week, which introduced 2 new dungeons, new Senshi quests, a bunch of special events, along with the new Death Valley Coliseum battlefield. Now, while Twin Saga isn't exactly any kind of revolutionary MMORPG, it actually just plays like any other generic anime MMORPG. I did have fun playing this one, mainly because the game's story is actually quite hilarious. It's one of the few free-to-play MMOs where I actually read all the quest dialogue because the people who localized the game had a lot of fun with it and they didn't take it too seriously, and the dialogue is actually quite good. It's also one of the newest anime MMORPG from X-Legend available in the West. Next up, in some unfortunate news, Dragon's Dogma Online, the MMORPG based on the Dragon's Dogma franchise, is officially shutting down in Japan on December 5th before ever launching outside its home country. And the reason provided for the closure was as to be expected, as the game simply didn't reach enough players to justify its continued existence. We had an old guide on MMOs.com on how to play Dragon's Dogma Online from the West on the Japanese servers, but I guess that guide is now useless. Rest in pepperoni, Dragon's Dogma Online on December 5th. And if you wanted to play the game before it shuts down, I'm pretty sure they canceled new account registration, so you will not be able to make new accounts. Up next, we have yet another free-to-play Battle Royale game announced called Watchers, which is running beta tests until August 4th. Ever since PUBG and Fortnite took off, there's been a ton of new Battle Royale games. The neat thing about Watchers, though, is that upon death, players can actually influence the rules of a match and the random events that take place, which ends up making games a bit more wacky and unpredictable. The idea of dead players influencing the game sounds pretty cool, actually. I just don't know if Watchers will have the scale to compete with the big boys like Fortnite and PUBG, but it looks a little interesting at least. Next and last of news this week is from Atlas. Yes, extremely buggy, laggy sandbox survival MMO. They launched a new standalone map called Blackwood, which was designed by a map modder. The new map spices things up for Atlas, and while I haven't really touched this game in some time, it still averages 2,800 or so players on any given time on Steam, which is definitely impressive, even with the steady decline since launch. I guess it goes to show you, though, that players do want some kind of sandbox survival MMO with persistent elements, even if it has issues. Hopefully we'll get something better than Atlas in the future. Anyway, guys, that's it from my news today. No podcast tomorrow. July 30th is when Savage is launching for Final Fantasy 14, so I will definitely be no-lifing that. Anyway, guys, until next time. Later, guys.